No.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Greater Niagara Fishing Expo in Niagara Falls, New York. It is segment 2 of day 3 here at the show, and just another awesome show lined up for everybody. Chris Larson here along with Captain Vince Pierleone, Kevin Frenette, and Nick Russin. And gentlemen, just welcome to the show, and thanks for everybody for coming on. I think we're going to talk spoons. We got a couple of guys here. No, I think we're talking a little bit of kind of meat rigging. And so, guys, if you can tell our audience who you are and what you do.
Hi, so I'm Kevin. I'm from Deep Rig Tackle. I make artificial herring strips and something else that's going to be coming down the line.
I'm Nick Russin with Rig Cut Bait out of Kendall, New York. That's there's not much more to say about, I guess, cutting fish up and packaging them, right?
So, Vince, you kind of put this show together. Vince Pierleone from Thrill Seeker Sport Fishing. Vince, you put this show together. You're the one who invited these guys, and I'm assuming we want to talk some meat. So, I'll let you kind of guide this along here.
So there's been more and more use of the artificial strips. So Nick offers a fine product of the real thing, and I just thought what a great conversation we could have. We could talk meat rigging and whether it's artificial or the real thing. So you guys did a good job of introducing yourselves, but how did you guys end up in your respective little businesses?
Yeah, so I started fishing the lake almost probably 20 years ago. Time flies, I guess. Started fishing with some other products, and I didn't really like the price point and didn't really like the product. I guess I thought I could do it myself, so I started doing it myself. That worked into doing it for some friends and stuff like that, and then kind of blossom into doing about 20,000 strips, I guess, a year. So it's really kind of taken off a lot more than what I had originally expected it to.
The way I started out, there was a couple products that were artificial. I mean, I fished meat for a long time, and I started getting into these artificials from somebody else that made them, and I couldn't get them. Nobody could get them, so I just, with a CNC background, I made some molds and started making some for myself. Again, same with Nick. The friends started, can I have? And just kind of, there were some things I wanted to do that, in the way that I fish, I wanted to have it a certain way, certain weight, to accomplish certain looks and presentations in the water. So again, I'm from Canada. I fish a different program than you guys fish down here. It's a bigger water down here, so I struggle when I come fish the bigger water, but I'll figure it out this year. We fish a lot of structure that's higher up as opposed to being on the bottom. A lot of currents coming off the Niagara, so there's a lot of different variations that I learned through the years and learned from a lot of other people of how to fish these programs. I don't fish many spoons. I do in the spring a little bit, but I'm a meat and potatoes, meat and flies kind of guy, and I do well with them.
So being a full-time charter captain, I definitely see there's room for both. I think that right off the surface, the artificial strips, being that you can offer glow patterns, you can offer colors. Now you're getting into some shiny, glittery things, and we on the South Shore, especially in the western end, we run into a lot of watercolor. So there's definitely times when having that color choice, and sometimes at deep depths too, I could see the glow being a positive thing. So why don't you guys tell us, your basic way of rigging, whether it be the natural or being the artificial?
Yeah, kind of to add with you, it's all about contrast, right? So you're really looking for something that can give you that contrast, that difference in color to produce those strikes. But I'll just, I guess, start off. I don't try to get cute with anything. I'll start off the morning. I put out everything, right? I give them a buffet, and whatever they like to start eating is the way that I'll kind of work that program into throughout the day. I just take meat right out of the package. I use some products, re- I guess any kind of meat head or meat rig that you're going to pull right out of the package, they work, right? With meat, for me, it's all about it looking pretty in the water. That spin, that roll, that nice, you know, every second or two, you know, you're getting that. Send it down there, see what happens. If you know you're not producing strikes, maybe tune that head a little bit. I know the newer ones are kind of molded to spin kind of what they're going to spin, and that's what you get. But especially with some of the older heads, you can kind of dial them down, make them slower, make them spin faster, a little bit like that, and yeah, kind of just play along with it through the day until you find something that works, and go from there.
So Kevin, just your basic rigging, things are really going well. What are you grooving with?
So right off the hop in the morning, we're glowing the backs of the artificial baits up. Got to get the glow down there. It matters as far as like so the artificials have the spine inside that you can tune. You can get that roll that you want, but I feel like it's more of a leader length adjustment that you're going to make when the fish are a little bit tough. So typically with the bigger paddles, the 11-inch on the riggers, I'll go 6 up to 8 feet. Just they have a wider whoop. So the bait, you don't want it to just keep going in a constant circle. It doesn't look natural. So it creates a different way the spin comes after the paddle in the currents. So I mean, a 6-foot lead is usually what I start with the big paddles. The 8 inches usually I'm about between 4 and 5 feet, and that's a good starting point right there. But before I start going nuts with the tuning of the spine, it's more of a leader length thing that I like to go to and change that up. And then you might add the Twinkies or take the Twinkies away. You might want 2, you might want 3.
Is that the way you see it, Nick?
Yeah. I mean, there's a million different variables when you're out there on the lake. So yeah, every detail matters, especially when you're not throwing a spoon out there and letting it spin. You know, with a spoon, all you need to do is worry about your length from your downrigger ball. It's a little bit more artsy, I guess if you want to call it. So yeah, everything matters.
We're with Nick Russin from Rig Cut Bait, Kevin Fournette from Deep Rig Tackle, and Vince Paglione from Thrill Seeker Sport Fishing. We are talking cut bait, we're talking artificial meat, we're talking meat rigging today. So if you guys have questions for any of these guys on meat rigs, make sure you drop them in the comments. We'll get them to them. But for you, Vince, as a charter captain, as a fisherman, what are the advantages to running meat? Like, why would you do it? I know a lot of people, they like to run a spoon program. It's easy. It doesn't take, it's a lot less effort. What are the advantages to running a meat program?
So from a charter captain's perspective, we on Lake Ontario and most of the Great Lakes, we're fishing for fish that have no problem whatsoever filling their bellies. So we have to play upon their instinct of just killing the wounded ones, right? So spoons do a good job of that, but sometimes you have to get beyond that. And the typical meat rig with a piece of herring and recently these artificial strips, that not only mimics a crippled or wounded bait fish, but it also has the look of another fish when you're running a flasher that's going to get that bait. So you're playing off their competitive nature and you're playing off their instinct to take out the wounded ones, even if their bellies are full. So that's where this artsy or crafty nature comes in, where you're trying to fool these fish, and a lot of times they are the bigger ones because they feed the most efficiently. That's where that comes in, and we can catch fish throughout the day even though they're not in their heavy feeding mode. When a real frenzy is on, A lot of times you can drop a bunch of spoons in and take advantage of it, but when it gets down and dirty, that's where this little more tweaking comes in, and we can touch on that. I know, Kevin, you had a few things you wanted to share with that.
So yeah, like just building on what Vince said, there's not. I put underwater cameras down with the baits so I can try to make them the best I can. And there's nothing like, as opposed to a spoon, there's nothing like a slab of meat coming out of a bait ball, right? It's quite wild to see. Moving on that point, sometimes the bite might slow down. So in comes a more finesse bait, and these are anchovy baits with a brand new. It's a mini herring head. It's not an anchovy head, and it works wonders. It takes big fish, 30-pound fish. This is the next best thing, as far as I'm concerned.
And that's really, I think, where, whether it be artificial or real meat, that presentation helps with, and I know you know, Vince, right?
Yep.
Pressure.
Yep.
How many boats are down at that Niagara bar in the springtime, kind of all running that same thing? If you can get to where those fish kind of get away from all of that traffic and present them something that, they really want, you're going to have a good day.
No doubt. So, do you guys do things differently with your respective presentations when the fish are high in the column?
So I can tell you a really funny story, I guess. It's a while back, probably 10 years ago. One of the late King of the Oaks, we left the dock, we did a couple swipes on the break wall, got one on a J-plug, and man, we ran, and all day we couldn't find anything. High noon, sun's up, I go, we gotta go back to that break wall. Everybody on the boat looks at me, they go, you are absolutely nuts. Went back in there, we had all of our meat stuff on our mag spoons, I go, just throw them in the water, throw them out a couple of, 10 feet, something like that. We're in 12 feet of water as people jet skiing, sailboat, and we boxed. But, no, I guess if I'm in shallower water, yeah, mentally you think, hey, let's go to a little bit smaller paddles, 8-inch, or, I guess even, coho dodgers, I guess, or I've actually ran just meat heads right on mono, put them on your downrigger, try to make them mimic that spoon-like action, I guess. But no, I mean, when those fish want to eat, they're going to eat.
So, with being on the North Shore, we fish, like I was saying, the drop comes a lot quicker. And 2 years ago, we had a lot of fish in there. We were having like 30, 40, even 50 bite days, but we never left 70 feet of water. So we had to get used to fishing that higher program. So we just kind of adapted. We didn't put any big paddles down. With the meat, we were putting them, what we're doing was we're dropping our speed. Once the bait would drop, we seemed to get a lot of hits. So that's one way we countered that. And again, with these things here, my friend Davy's Baits, that's when he started testing these, 3D printed the heads. All the heads are brand new. And he wanted to find something that was effective. It took him 2 years. It was 2 years in the making, but just that shallow water or deep water program. This was kind of a way to combat that, as well as for finicky fish or fish that have full bellies.
So basically, what you're saying is the first thing you did was downsize.
Yep.
Downsize the presentation, yep. And for people that aren't as educated on our seasons. What time of year was that?
So that went from basically like everybody fishes the bar, April into May, and then in May they start transitioning throughout the lake. But basically like June right through August to the time that they staged, they never moved because we had all the bait fish on that side of the lake for the whole year.
That's where you're finding them in 70 foot of water.
Yep, yep. They were saying they had the perfect water temperature for the bait fish, and the salmon will be there. We know wherever the bait fish are, they are, right?
So, Kevin, have you spent much time now fishing on the South Shore, U.S. waters?
So I do come down for my favorite thing that I sponsor, which is Reeling for Cure. I always have a great time. I came down the last 2 years to fish the water. Didn't do very well. It's definitely different fishing the bigger water, uh, but this year I'm going to come back with vengeance. I want to do a few more tournaments, but yeah, I want to figure out this big water program, right?
So, so what do you mean by big water? Because we're all fishing the same lake. What do you mean by big water?
Just like because it drops off.
You're saying you're usually in a limited area. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like we have our certain areas that we go to on the North Shore where you're fishing basically structure. As soon as it drops off, you got a lot of bowls. Bronny has a big bowl in it, and a lot of guys hang around there. And you've got the Toronto Island that goes all the way out to Oshawa where you've got 100 feet of water right down to 300 real quick. So you get the bait fish like to be around there, and it's right at the end of the Niagara outflow current. So coming and fishing over here, you got to find the temp breaks. You've got to find the thermic line, and it's just a bigger water that I find.
Okay.
You have to find the fish.
So the water that Nick or I would fish more often, that's new to you. You're more fishing spots.
Yes.
Where we're covering ground, we're suspended fish,
Yes.
deep water.
Yes.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So the Reeling for a Cure event that they're referring to is in mid-August. Kevin's a big supporter. Nick participates for us. It's put on by my wife and raises money for women's cancer concerns. But that is a very popular time to fish, but it can vary year to year. You can be in 100 foot of water, you can be in 500 foot of water, and it's the way we roll on the South Shore. So you make a good point. I've never heard it be called big water before, but
Big water.
so you've got anything to add with that, Nick?
I think just rewinding back a little bit about presentation. I know that a lot of people think that I'm fishing meat. I need to send it as deep as I can to go try to catch fish, and kind of like Kev said, you don't need to do that. And I think adding, I guess, to your story, anytime that I put meat out on a diver, I'm starting it at zero, right? And I'm just letting that thing tick out and tick out and tick out, and you'd be amazed how many big fish bite as that diver's creeping down.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Because they can definitely move around to take advantage of their prey. Warm water temporarily, move back into their preferred temperatures.
So you guys both offer kind of a out of the box meat that somebody can pull out of a package, put it on their meat head and go fishing. But you guys have very different products though. So can you talk a little bit about your product? First of all, what it is and how it works, but also if somebody wants to pick it up somewhere, where can they find your product? 'Cause that's what everybody wants to know too, is like, all right, you're gonna tell me all about this stuff, but where do I get it? So explain kind of what that cut bait really is, and then Kevin, when it gets to you, if you can just talk about how your product being artificial meat, what the advantages of that are, because there are some advantages, but there's also advantages to the cut bait as well. So you guys can kind of just talk about the differences in what you guys have, because they basically, they serve the same purpose, they solve the same problem, but they do it in different ways.
Yeah, and they both work, and they both work really well. I get Pacific herring shipped in from Oregon each winter. Hand fillet them, hand trim them, brine them up, and package them. It's real basic, but the brine that I use now, I worked on for probably 7 years. My brother's an engineer, so I've tried every chemical you could ever think of to try to keep it natural, but strong, and not, I guess, too rubbery or plasticky, or take the scent out of it. There's a lot of people that use all these different brines, but to keep it as natural as possible with still being able to hold up. Now, where the artificial bait takes an advantage is it's made of, I guess I can't say what, rubber, I guess I'll call it. You can correct me on that here. But you're going to be able to continue to keep using that strip over and over and over. Whereas the real stuff, you can have a 25-pound king bite it, and you get it back, and you go, oh, this thing looks brand new. Let's make sure it spins and send it back out. Or you could have a little Skippy king bite that thing and tear it to pieces, and you go, cool, well, there's a couple bucks down the drain. Awesome. We're going to throw this one back. But yeah, I've been doing it for probably 7 to 10 years selling it now, and I got a Facebook page right now that you could reach out, Rig Cut Bait, and then we'll be live with an online store here probably in a couple weeks. It'll be rigcutbait.com.
So with the artificials, basically they're made to last. It's hard to really say. I've had some people tell me they'll last 50 fish, some 5 fish. So they're built to help out with the expenses. So how long they last, it depends on how the fish gets them. So the main thing, my focus on what I like to put in the baits is and I feel strongly on it, is the contrast of colors, which entices the fish. I don't put scent in them. Whether you need it or not, it's just a personal preference. It's more of a strike. It's a predator instinct when they're going to hit that bait, when they're following it. But the contrast, your flasher's going to bring them in, and your bait's going to seal the deal. Whether it's real meat or artificial, they both work. I don't fish a tournament without one of them. As far as like with depths, the fish see the certain colors, and what an advantage of having the artificial is you can put that color down to that depth that you want it to be at, that the fish is going to see. As far as where you can get them right now in the U.S., Fish USA is exclusive dealer. They're going to be coming out to a lot of stores. There's a lot of pro staff. If there's questions, I'm going to start doing this summer more of a deep rig report to try to let everyone know which patterns, which colors are going in different waters, different colored waters.
Good stuff. So when I get anglers that have spent as much time and passion in the game, I like to hear, like, right off the top of your heads, what's a great fish story you got to share with everybody?
I'll go. I guess we'll stick with the unbelievable stories, right? Because those are always the ones that stick out. I used to fish when I first started. 17, 18 years old. I used to, troll the Oak, combat fish in a little 14-foot boat. I used to stream fish a lot, so we'd catch the kings and use the skein for bait in the creeks. But we were trolling along one day and had what I thought was a snag, right? And we were using the inline boards. Ended up snapping the board off, and I go, oh well, it's floats. We'll come back and get it. Next thing you know, we look back and the board's skipping across the water. We ended up chasing it down, tying it back on the rod, and landed a 25-pound king on it. So that was the stuff that I guess the stories that you remember are the ones that are the most unbelievable ones.
For sure.
So for me, I'm going to have 2 quick stories here. One is what it becomes all about, and so the first one is fishing last year, actually, reeling for a cure, and there's not much to the story. It's just the look on the two ladies' face that caught their first fish, and that's my story for that one because it was awesome, right? Mm-hmm. And the other goes with my son Jackson, 13-year-old, the year before, when I came out with the first Fish USA exclusive. It's the Green Lightning. A 13-year-old, the look on his face, catching a 28.5-pound salmon and bringing it himself. That's what that's what it's all about.
A lot of people, take it for granted, but man, what a difference it's made in the Great Lakes having those Pacific salmon.
All right, Vince, how about you? What's your story?
Well, I've got so many, but one that comes to mind. We were in a lull, wasn't hot and heavy by any means, and remember seeing a fish creasing the surface, and I think it was actually attacking aquatics on the surface, and it wasn't a couple seconds after the fish went out of view, our high wire rod started screaming line, and it was incredibly soon that the fish was at the back of the boat. And the guys are somehow ends up in the net, and somehow they're high-fiving, and no one realizes, but me, that this thing isn't even on a hook. It was swimming so close to the surface as it left the boat. It must have felt it, started twisting, and it looped around its bottom jaw, and we landed it was a steelhead, and it was just incredible that the guys didn't realize that it wasn't even caught on a hook. But that's the first one that came to mind. But wow, I have a lot of those stories.
So we just got somebody pop on here asking about heads. So what do you guys like for heads with your products? What are you using for meat heads?
I use normally the Hawks Custom meat heads there. They got a pretty good selection. But I tend to, I'm not really brand kind of, specific. Anything that you get that looks good, put it on there, and it should work. You got your. For me, it's more about conditions than it is about getting a specific type of meat head. Obviously, you want your glow heads, you want your chrome heads, you want your UV heads. For each one type of condition that you're going to face. But again, it's all about that contrast that you're getting down in the water column. That's gonna help induce those strikes.
I have always been a big ITO guy. I love the stuff that they make. So I run a lot of them. I run some Diabolical. I would say mostly ITO is a go-to for me. But now I have, again, Davies heads. I've been using them for the last year, and they perform very well. And not only that, they are one of quite a few that one thing I'll point out is with these artificial baits, if you put them in certain heads, they'll melt if you leave them in there. And I know the charter guys, they like to leave them in so they're all set up. But with these heads, with these heads that I just named, you can leave them in and they're not going to melt. You don't have that issue. Something in the plastic with certain brands. They're not very many, but I like the ones that I use now, and they're Davies baits.
Yeah, similar for me. I have an incredible collection of them, being in business for over 40 years. Granddaddy, of course, was the Reese Davis heads, but over the years, Diabolical is doing a good job. Dreamweaver is now making a ton of great heads. And Hotfish heads out of Canada. They're all really good heads. I mean, it's just like any other industry where people have passion. The junk gets weeded out quick.
Yeah, and a lot to do with what you have confidence in, right? That's I think probably 90% of fishing is, you got to put out what you're confident in. If you don't do that, you're gonna. It's a very mental game too, on top of just trying to get fish in the boat.
Nick, you talked a little bit about using glow heads in the certain situations. So you're going to use that in the morning right away, and you're going to transfer out and go to different colors. But Kevin, especially your product with the different colors in there, when you're pairing your artificial meat with a head, are you looking to make something that is similar in color, or are you contrasting when you're putting kind of a head and the artificial meat combination together? And the other thing I wanted to ask you guys about is size of head. So, would you want to go with a smaller head once in a while to give it a different presentation compared to what the larger head would do, and just getting those movements? But let's talk about color first, Kevin.
Okay, so as far as pairing the heads with the baits, I like to pair them. I like to have them matching. Not 100% on what it is, but I do like to mix them up. There's just because something like there's that whole that whole fascination that everybody has with everything has to match. I don't really believe that is the case all the time. I've caught some of my bigger fish on mix and match just for the fun of it because I couldn't get anything to go. As far as the smaller heads, or as far as the heads, I like to use just the regular size head. I don't like to use the big ones, but as of last year, started to use these new mini herrings. So now I use smaller ones. I always made the anchovy to match it. We go into an anchovy head, but I wasn't really into it. I like running herring. I like running the herring size. But now I'm into running both sizes now because everything has their day, and it's just another option to have out there, and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, then for me, I guess when you say a bigger head or a smaller head, to me that is like, are we using a rise head or are we using one of those bigger, a little bit wider meat heads? Those rise, they're awesome. I know I talked to Vinny about this, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, is being able to tune those and get that spin kind of dialed in. They have a little bit, their tail on that's a little bit weaker, I guess we'll call it, or malleable, so you can kind of bend that around. Whereas these new ones, they're thicker, and they're kind of what they are is what they are. You can, I've been known to break a few of these the thicker meat heads or the bigger meat heads, but, cranking them around. If I get a piece of meat that just I don't like in the water, but for me, I don't think the size of the meat head really matters. I think it's just, you get that roll down and you get that, get that paired up. Obviously, using the fish hawk, you got your top speed on that. You want to make sure, okay, cool, we got 2.2 or 2.4 on surface. All right, this is what it looks like. Let's match that down where the probe is, and get some strikes moving.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to ask you guys next. Is running these things, it's important that they spin the way you want them to spin. Can you provide some tips on tuning meatheads and making sure that they run the way that they should run? I'll let you start, Nick, and Vince, I'd like to get your thoughts on this too.
Yeah, so again, going back to those newer meatheads, I think that's a pretty good baseline as to, kind of, I guess, what you want to see that bait do as a generic or a baseline, right? They're going to spin however they spin, and that's that. Obviously, your speed and your current plays a big role in that as to what that's doing down at the ball, especially once you get down past that 100-foot mark. Gets really interesting, I guess. But I just lost my train of thought.
No, I got you. I mean, so I think we both like the ability to tune the heads. There are a lot of brands where you don't need to do that at all. But coming up through the ranks and having to tune the heads, it was a must. We had to do it. And you check them after a bite because they got neutralized, right? But just like some of the things that Kevin shared, it isn't always by the book. I mean, it's some incredible meat bites where we know we were spinning them out. And when spinning them out means you're going so fast or the head's rolling so fast that it's tightened it right up. It's the way you would tell somebody you're running it wrong. But the fish are the ultimate judge, right? So they're revved up. Maybe other presentations would have worked, but that doesn't matter because you're not going to change at that point, right? Because they're just drilling it. And you're not missing anything, and it's down the throat. And so, just like any other kind of fishing, just like any other part of our game, you just listen to the fish because it can be completely opposite of what you think. And that could change quick.
So,
Kevin, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, so just to add to that point, like everybody says, just as a standard, put it down next to the boat and see how it's rotating. You want it to go a certain speed. That's not what it looks like when it's down below. That's why, for me, I feel that the leader length is going to be a big factor in it because you got the currents and bigger currents down at the depths. So it's not going to be just rotating in a clean circle. It's going to flutter. It's going to go down. It's going to do different things. And again, you got to let the fish decide what they want. So if you just try to stick with, that's the roll, I'm going to go with it. You might not catch fish. You got to be open to change things and try different stuff. And don't be afraid to record what's working on a certain day at a certain depth with the weather conditions and what you're using because it makes a difference.
Nick, what do you feel like is your most popular product if somebody wants to get into your line and start using your stuff? where should people start? And Kevin, I'll ask you the same question. What's kind of the spot where if someone wants to start working with your brand and get into it, where should they start in your product line?
I would start on YouTube. I know Rick Kajecki, I know Finney, Bob Songen. A lot of guys are posting reports on there. How to actually, rig those meatheads and get them actually working in the water. It's simple, but it is a little bit of a science. So I mean, for me to get started, throw it in the water, see what happens. I learned, especially starting. I didn't have downriggers, I didn't have a fish hawk, I didn't have anything. So I learned by doing, and I think it's a lot more rewarding that way. Trying to figure out yourself exactly how these fish, I guess, want to respond to what you're putting out there, and it kind of makes you a better fisherman all in all. But yeah, the internet now is so awesome for any information trying to do this, and it saves you a lot of time and energy. I know, you're driving 4 or 6 hours to go out on the lake. You're spending all this money on tackle, on boat stuff. To be able to go out there and produce, using the internet's a really, really good way to get into it and figure out, at least get a starting point of what you're looking to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Just weather. You got to learn how to read the weather and process what the lake is telling you. You can just go, if you go out to whatever spot worked last week, doesn't mean, or day to day, it's not going to be the same the next day. Recording information helps you along. As far as with artificial strips, you just give it a little tweak. Like I said, 6 to 8 feet on the big paddles. On the 8-inch paddles, you're going to go about 4 to 5. And instead of tweaking it till you think it's going to work, just the leader lengths matter more.
So we're with Nick Russin from Rigged Cut Bait, Kevin Fournette from Deep Rig Tackle, and Vince Pirlioni from Thrill Seeker Sport Fishing. And if you want to find out more about Vince, you can go to his Facebook page. It's Thrill Seeker Sport Fishing. You guys are on Facebook as well. You're out there on the web. Vince, do you have anything more that you wanted to ask these guys before we kind of let them go here?
So I think this would be interesting to the people out there on the North Shore. Somebody was hoping to catch, their personal best. Where, what port and time of year?
July and August, the fish are bigger in September when they start staging in August. As far as where the big fish are, they're getting bigger in the spring. As far as where to get them, there's big fish everywhere. You got to put the time on the water. If you just go out there as a weekend warrior, you got to be doing the right things, but it's going to be a luck of whether you go over that big fish or not. They're out there, they're everywhere. As far as if you want to try to narrow it down, the Toronto Island is great. If you fish that drop all the way down to Oshawa, on the east end, if you go to Coburg, Newcastle, tons of big fish there. It wasn't really the case this summer. Most of them were coming out of Port Credit. Actually, the biggest fish was a friend of mine, Shane Sams. He caught the big one. That won the GOSD. I think it was 35, 36 pounds, whatever it was. It was a lot bigger than the biggest I caught. So those are good ports to start at. You can't go wrong by fishing the island. It's always good, and it's always there's always an abundance of big fish. That's why I don't put the spoons down anymore. I go flies and meat, and I don't necessarily get the biggest one to win the tournaments, but I get a lot of big, good quality fish.
Now, on those bigger fish, is it always on the slow side, or are you finding days where the big fish are picking out the faster presentations?
I typically go. I use a fish hawk to find out what's going on down there because there's a lot of currents around the Toronto Island. As far as on the surface is what I kind of watch more because I know what I'll be going down below with the fish hawk. But for most people, it would translate to about 2.5 to about 2.8 on the surface, which gives you that slow presentation, but it picks up quick when you, like I said, with the currents there. So that I find a lot of fish are hitting it when it drops, and the cameras are telling me that is the case. That I put under the water with the baits going down there.
How about you, Rick? I'm sorry, Nick.
I guess going back to the internet and the abundance of information there, you look at the lock derby, that's where I would start, right? And the spring derby, you know where those fish are getting caught. Summer derby, you know where they're getting caught, and in the fall, you know where they're getting caught as well. Looking at tournament results and following those tournaments, because those tournaments kind of follow the same trajectory there. The tournaments aren't based around when the fishing is bad in each one of those ports for the most part. Obviously, it sometimes is, and that's personally what I like. I like it when it's tough. I like a challenge. But yeah, I guess that in a nutshell is where I would go and follow to go try to get my personal best.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is so many of our big fish come away from traffic, not necessarily even on a hot bite. A lot of times we're away from traffic because we're looking for the next hot bite. And it does seem like some of those really outsized ones that win derbies are loners. You know, they don't like to compete with the little guys. So, you know, think outside the box when you're trying to get that done.
Yeah, I mean we've gotten fish, especially fishing the triple O there. You know, you're fishing lake trout. All of a sudden, the meat rig takes off. You know, you're not pulling all of your baits just to fish lake trout. You can run 8 rods. You know, they're still hanging out there. You get them going. You know, 1.6, 1.8. You get them going 3.2 when you're fishing steelhead. You know, so. Yeah, there's so many different variables that seems to surprise you every single day that you're out there. That adds a new thought in your brain that goes, now what? You know, so.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming on. Again, Nick with Rig Cut Bait, Kevin from Deep Rig Tackle, and Vince from Thrill Seeker Sport Fishing. You can find Vince on Facebook. It's Thrill Seeker Sport Fishing. But just appreciate you guys stopping in here and talking some meat rigging. And I think it's something that people a lot of times I think are a little bit intimidated by it. But when you see it done, you get out there and you do it, it's a lot easier than I think they think it is. And it's something that can be really, really productive, especially when the bite's tougher with other things going on. It's just another tool in your toolbox that you can throw at them when things aren't going quite the way maybe you'd hope they go with your other programs. So it's definitely something that people should think about. If you're not doing it, you should give it a try. With products like what Kevin has and Nick has, it makes it a lot easier and a lot more approachable than it used to be back in the day. So I think it's a good idea, a good thing to get into, help you catch more fish when you're out there. Appreciate these guys coming on. We'll be back on this afternoon and this evening right here at the Greater Niagara Fishing Expo.